children of immigrants, like the message is taught to you, find stability, find a stable job. It's like almost like a value, like it's immoral almost to stray from this value of stability. It was like part of me just scratching an itch to see like, well, what happens if I don't choose the safest path and instead choose something that might be more aligned with my interests? Maybe it's just to try something different. It's okay to fail a class. Like, I know so many people actually who like school was just not for them. Like programmers where they're just like, they just kept trying. And I remember there's a person I know who kind of failed out of the CS program and is now like a principal engineer doing amazing things.
Welcome to episode 12 of Boba Talk, a podcast where we talk about all things tech, programming, and everything in between. My name is Ellie. I'm a curriculum dev here at Codedex, and I'm here with Victoria. She's a software engineer of 13 plus years based in Brooklyn, building browsers, maps, dev tools. She's worked at the browser company, Glitch, Google, and in 2023, she took a sabbatical to focus on her creative pursuits. Welcome, Victoria, to the office. We're very happy to have you.
Hello. Nice to be here. Nice to meet everyone on the podcast as well. So excited to chat.
Yeah. What's your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little origin story.
Oh, man. Origin story. Okay. Let's see. I guess how far back do origin stories go? Like, are we talking like childhood? I guess like wherever your computing journey starts, perhaps. Yeah. Well, mine does start in childhood. I was always, I always loved making things. So when we had a family computer, I'm 37, so a little on the, I don't know, maybe for this crowd a little older. We got like Windows 3.1. And I remember the first thing that I was really hyped for was MS Paint. Because it was like, oh, wait a minute. I can like draw pictures on this thing and undo. Like undo was huge. Like, like you used to like drawing and you're like, made a mistake. Hey, it's okay. I got to start over. But then it was like, ooh, I get to like save. Like, honestly, it was like, obviously I didn't have the words for this at the time, but it was like version control. Like, I can save this image and then try this other image. And then for me, actually, when I was young, what really tied things together to me was you could print it out. So this becomes a through line, and especially later in my career. But like the fact that you could like work on something digitally, enjoy something, like all the benefits of digital, and then like sort of bring it back to the real world. Like even when I didn't have the language for that, understanding that was exciting to me when I was like young. And so I think that's where like my interest in just computers got started. Then again, not an unusual story, but I was a very nerdy kid and I loved anime and video games. And so like around the time I was like 13, 14, there are a lot of like anime fan sites, and there are like these meticulously handcrafted anime fan sites. Meanwhile, in parallel, I'm using a lot of like print software actually. Like I love like designing something on the computer, then printing it out. I like making calendars, newsletter cards. I learned in my print software, there are things like Microsoft Publisher. You could also, around that time, print software started adding build a web page. And so I was like, hold on. I see this thing, like these cool anime websites. Can I make an anime website using my print software? That sort of got me into like making websites. I can remember several of my anime websites that I made, and ended up studying computer science. I majored in computer science at University of Washington, a master's and a bachelor's in computer science, and then went from there.
Nice. That's awesome. First of all, I love your website. I mean, your website now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very cool. So you wanted to, kind of get into tech. It's kind of been something that you've loved since you were a kid. And then, you were also, you were at the browser company as of recently. You wore like a lot of hats there. You were sort of, I think, doing multiple things all at the same time. And I feel like that also, relates to kind of, is that the environment that you wanted to be in? And also, what was it like kind of being like at a company that has recently been like really big? Yeah. So you mean like a company like browser company that's been like in the spotlight? Yeah,
or like, okay, yeah. So maybe it makes sense to describe the browser company by describing first some of the other experiences I've had leading up to it. I started off my career actually at Google in big tech, working actually very, very great timing. I was working on the early Chrome team. So I worked on a browser, and I worked on a browser before Chrome was the dominant browser in, the name that it was still extremely unclear, actually, whether or not Chrome had legs. It also, I was working on the video team. So that meant, at the time, Flash was the predominant way that people viewed video. NPAPI plugins were the predominant way where, again, the reason why the plugins existed was because the web APIs just did not provide enough options for you to be able to make more immersive experiences on the web. So I was part of a team that was building alternative APIs to NPAPI plugins. We weren't sure if that was going to take off. Actually, even the question of are plugins going to be the way forward or not was not decided. And so I started at Google and started on Chrome there. And it was just such a fun, exciting time of this is, early code base and there's so much to do. And that sort of environment I ended up really liking, where it's we've got this uncertain mission. Again, at the time, Chrome was one of the first browser that did a multi-process architecture. So it was all these exciting unknown problems, sort of exploring a space. And if anything, I would say that that gave me the wrong impression of big companies. When I joined Google at that time on Chrome, I was I love big companies. Oh my God, you just get all these cool greenfield projects to work on with all the comforts
with resources and everything. Yeah.
I spent 5 wonderful years on Chrome, had a great time.
Yeah, I feel it was really influential, right? Because, it was the very kind of first versions of it.
Yes, absolutely. Chrome is immensely influential browser. At the browser company, Arc use Chromium. So many different browsers, even if they're ultimately trying to compete with Chrome, are still using Chromium as its way of rendering the web pages. And so, yeah, when I look at it in retrospect, it's actually oh wait, I've always craved what's typically considered more of a startup environment. The fact that I happened to start at Google, but you're working on Chrome. Actually, again, when I changed teams a few times at Google, I think that's when I was more confused. Oh wait, this is what working.
It was a very different. Yeah.
And again, I love my experiences at Google. I love the people I worked with on Maps and in VR. Actually, VR. That also was more startup-y, and that it was just exploring new spaces. But Maps was more oh, this is what working at a big company is like. So much respect for that, but it wasn't
And what were those specific differences? Is it the size of team or?
Great question. It's it's really all of the above. It's you go a lot slower.
Yeah.
The code base is massive, and Chrome was already big. It's expected that you might spend 2 to 3 years just wrapping your head around the problems that Google Map is facing in order to innovate on something big, which I respect. That's cool. For people to devote that much time to a problem, really thinking about it, understanding it, untangling it. But for me, because I didn't happen to love maps, that subject matter that much in order to devote 3+ years, 5+ years, 10+ years to doing that, that was what made it not a great fit. Because I was oh, I'm not as interested in that domain. So an environment where I can sort of explore new problems that are less established, that actually feels more fun to me, that feels more interesting, more aligned with my interests. And so that's actually what led me to both Glitch and the browser company and trying out startups was hey, let's I love trying to figure out that sort of early stage of a product. And again, when it's really not clear if you're going to succeed or not.
Or something. Yeah.
That ended up being something I kept for.
Yeah, and now Chrome is Chromium is behind almost all the browsers now. I feel that are newly built. So when you left Google and you left Google twice.
Yeah. I'm an expert at leaving Google.
So the first time that you left, were you kind of like near, like at this point where you're like, this isn't aligning, or sort of where were you at and why was sort of the reason that you left? I think the first time.
Again, great questions I've asked myself a lot. And this one's interesting too, because I think like as I get older, as I understand myself more, I look back at these moments in my career and I can answer them differently than like what was accessible to me at the time. So at the time, I was just following my gut. I was like, for some reason, this isn't clicking. Like I'm not as excited about this work that I was when I was working on Chrome. I feel like I need something different. I'd always loved teaching, and I had a few check boxes on my like bucket lists of things I wanted to try in my career. I love teaching so much. It was like the only job I had when I was in high school. I taught math. I was a math tutor in college. I skipped internships to teach. Like I spent my summers teaching. When I was undergrad, I like TA'd all the time. And so I had always been curious about like, what does it feel like to be a full-time teacher? And so since I was just like, my gut's saying for some reason it's not clicking in this big tech thing, maybe now's the right time to like try.
This was like, what year would you say this was? Like
gosh. I think it was around 2015-ish.
Yeah. I feel like the industry was still very like up and coming.
For sure.
I think,
yeah. Different time. Yeah. And again, I think at the moment, I would say that is what I would, that is the answer that's more reflective of how I was feeling at that time. And I would say with more perspective now, just knowing where my career has gone, I can see now, like, I think I was craving trying more risk. Like I was craving, like, before, again, my background, my parents or my mom's an immigrant. We came from a low income. And so it's like so much, I think a lot of people, especially like children of immigrants, like the message is taught to you, find stability, find a stable job, it's like almost like a value, like it's immoral almost to stray from this value of stability. And I think so something also motivating me to leave Google was to like, hey, let's try a risk. Hey, I want to try something that's like maybe not the most financially, like if I'm evaluating this decision from just finance perspective, going into teaching is not that. And so I think it was like part of me just scratching an itch to see like, well, what happens if I don't choose the safest path and instead choose something that might be more aligned with my interests, might not be. Like maybe it's just to try something different. And so I think a lot of that's all that like sort of went into my decision to like, let's just see
pursue something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, you ended up going to teach at Stanford.
Yes.
So what was that like? And also like, as like, I think you kind of had being like in this educator role for some time. Like, what was your experience with students learning how to code or being at a, space where they're improving their technical skills as, like educator, like kind of what would you say on that? Like your experience, like teaching and being like at a college.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'll talk about the experience teaching first. I think first, it's so funny. It's like I've taught in so many different capacities now. I was a math tutor at a community college. I've taught Googlers, like professional software engineers, how to CSS and JavaScript. Yeah. Like a side note is like a running gag on the Chrome team was like, there's so many brilliant Chrome C++ engineers literally building how CSS gets rendered in the browser. And they're like, CSS has defeated me. Like they cannot use CSS. Yeah. They're like, I cannot learn this thing. And so like I taught like CSS to like C++ developers, right? Like, so there's that. I've taught high school. I've taught at Stanford. I feel like a lot of intro students are the same. Like actually, like a lot of this, no matter where you are in your journey, when you're trying something for the first time, when you're like trying something new, I think that like a lot of the emotions are the same of like, one, it's so common to feel like you're so behind immediately. Like it's people are in intro CS1, they're 18 years old, Stanford University, and they're like, I'm already late. It's too late for me. And I think like, there's a lot of intimidation of like, I think even more so now. I mean, that was the feeling in 2015. Now the feeling is like, oh my God, I need to go faster. I'm so behind. I'm going too slow. I don't understand this. Oh, should I even bother with this? Like, there's so much sort of analysis there. And so what I encourage is, maybe unsurprisingly, go slow. Take your time. You've got the time. Like, you've got time. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, take the time you need. I would even go to say, I know this is really hard to believe and internalize when you're a student. I would have never listened to me with the words I'm about to say. It's okay to fail a class. Like, I know so many people actually who, like, school was just not for them. Like, programmers, where they're just like, they just kept trying. And including, like, I remember there's a person I know who kind of failed out of the CS program and is now like a principal engineer doing amazing things. Like, so I think it's like, don't stress. There's not one path that you have to go on that is the path to success. Actually, that's even more true now than ever. And so I think like, feel free to take your time, make mistakes, be honest with yourself too. Like, if you're not understanding something, feel free to like, go slower, ask questions. And I love to let those options like Cody Decks, where like you can augment your learning if you're not feeling your class. There are other ways to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like that's something that we try to push too, right? There's like, classes. There's also like, right, that difference of like computer science and then actually like making something. So like there's two different things. Yeah. School's definitely one route, but there's so many others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then definitely want to hear the story of you going back to Google a second time. And what was the motivation there? I think that, it's really interesting because like, I feel like you kind of had this experience before. And what was it that, I think brought you back?
Yeah. Okay. This is it's kind of embarrassing, very funny. So again, my experience at Stanford, I was on the teaching staff. I was not on the professor track. I don't have a PhD. The teaching staff I work with is like, they are the most wonderful people, the most thoughtful teachers. So I loved that teaching staff. Students, thoughtful, bright, like so passionate. One problem, I forgot I don't like school. So silly and dumb. I was like, Victoria, maybe you should have thought about that before working at a school. And I was like, literally like 2 weeks into Stanford, I was like,
oh, like, what did I do?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, and like, what I mean, I don't like school is like, I don't like giving grades. And I'm like, that might be a problem if I'm working at Stanford and teaching and have to give out grades. I don't like grades. Huh. Interesting. So it was just sort of like, I think that was part of it where I was like, oh, wait, I love teaching, but I don't know if like teaching at an institution in this way, despite all of the wonderful aspects about it, I don't think that's a fit for me. I think another thing, again, is before I went back to Google, I actually spent a summer at the Recurse Center. If you're not familiar with the Recurse Center, it's like they call it a programming retreat. It's like a writer's retreat for coders. It's not a boot camp. You go there and it's totally self-directed learning. So you don't pay for it, but you also don't get paid. You go there.
It's like a fun little,
Exactly. Like time to like really explore your interests. And so again, I had gone to Recurse Center with the full intention of coming back to teaching. My primary motivation for doing Recurse was like, I want to see whether this is something I would recommend to my students. I love New York City, so let me try this program for the summer. That's one of the benefits of teaching is like you get your summers, you do what you want. So in doing Recurse Center, I kind of was like, oh, shoot, I love coding. Oh, man, I forgot. I really love building things. And again, like I said, like I think I wasn't really knowing what I was craving at the time when I had that instinct to like move or to try Stanford, to try teaching. I think it was like the instinct actually of like, I want to try something different. I want to like build something new. And so like at Recurse Center, when you're literally building whatever you want and practicing, what do you want to build today? That was very healing to me, I think. And so that's what made me think, I was like, shoot, I think it's not the time where I want to sort of de-emphasize building and emphasize teaching. I can see that in my future still at some point, but now is not the time. And so going back to Google Actually, how I describe it is like more like a clean revert. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like
Blank
all right,
slate.
Yeah, exactly. Let's like go back. Let me try to isolate some variables of like, I already did, I'd moved from like Seattle to New York to San Francisco, changed careers entirely. I'm thinking I'm going back. I'm like, all right, let me go back to Google. But I started working in VR at the time because I was like, I didn't expect to stay at Google for forever, but I was like, while I sort of figure out what I want to do next, I'm going to try this like new technology and see where it leads me.
Yeah. And then I'm curious, like, did you also feel like when you had, I feel like during, I don't know, even now, like every year looks different in tech.
Yeah.
Because there's that like one like thing always changing. I'm curious, like, did you feel culture change at Google? Like, it's like from when you had first started, or was that developing? Or I'm curious, how then was your experience the second time around?
It's a yes and a no, because it's like, honestly, I've never experienced anything like those early days on Chrome. And so like that is just, it's hard to replicate, hard to get back. I mean, that's true about like any culture, any good thing. It's like you can have other new, exciting, good things, but like getting that exact same feeling is like, it's really hard. I was only gone for a year. So again, if you like, we're trying to diff against like my last year and the first time I spent at Google compared to the first year, the second time, not that different. Like, I think, sort of facing the same trade-offs of like, for better or worse, it's like the more fringier the project you're working at Google or any company really, if you're caring about things like promotion or whatnot, that's harder. Those are harder to come by just because of the way promotion structures work. But again, that was actually not surprising and fine with me. I was fine with that trade-off so long as I was getting to build fun things. And so, it didn't feel significantly different to my last experience, but it, of course, felt different from that, like, first experience with Chrome.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like, I feel like also, right, that this was, I mean, you kind of already came in, like, knowing how it, like, works. Like, I think at least being in the same environment,
for sure,
you know?
For sure, yep.
Okay, and then after Google, after leaving the second time,
second time leaving, yes.
You moved on to Glitch. And I'm curious how Glitch was very small. And you said like 2017, 2018 now? 2017.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I have to like look at my LinkedIn.
Yeah, and first of all, I think moment of silence for Glitch. I feel like
cry.
For those of you who don't know, Glitch is was a platform where you could just go in and build like websites and like deploy them and have them. And Glitch was actually the first time that I like went my first hackathon in 2020.
I heard. I listened to your episode with Jen last week. Or last time. Yeah.
And absolutely love Glitch. It is like I think it's always been like, being able to build accessibly was kind of like the big thing. And we had Jen Schiffer on an episode of Boba Talk. She was, I think, leading community there, community manager. And you were VP of engineering there for a bit. Yeah, I'm curious also, like, how did you get started at Glitch? What was that? And then I think like leading a team.
Absolutely. So I did not start off leading engineering. I actually, so going all the way to how I even got to Glitch was, I too really admired the platform. Again, teaching computer science near and dear to my heart. And again, I think I was like really scared actually at Google to like try a startup. I'd heard all these like rumors about startups are bad. They make you work a lot. And I just sort of thought like, okay, you know what? If I'm willing to try a startup, like Glitch just seemed cool. Like it seemed like fun. And so, and then was like really aligned with like my interests. So it also felt like a good trade-off of like, well, I'm working in, this area that's more stable, but the domain is not as interesting to me versus like Glitch, the domain is super interesting to me. So I actually sent an application, and this is something I recommend to people. I included a personal cover letter, like a very personal cover letter, like not a professional, like those are fine too. But like I think something that really shows your personality and showed that like I know what Glitch is, I know what this company it is, I know what they're trying to do, and this is why why I want to work at Glitch. So that's how the conversation started. I ended up managing a small team of I think I started. It's a little complicated. I had a few roles, but then I ended up landing on, I was a manager for the platform team. And then there were some leadership changes, there were some layoffs at Glitch. And during that transition, I ended up being the head of engineering. And so what's it like to manage both small...
Is this your first time, like, kind of being, like, I think in your career, getting to like engineering manager sort of?
Yeah. So at Google, I had done a lot of tech leading. Tech leading is different than managing. I still had leadership roles. This was my first time people managing, for better or worse. Like there are trade-offs of doing people management for the first time at a startup. Startup, you have to execute and learn at the same time. I think if I had a magic wand, I think I would have... I think there's a lot of advantages to actually being a manager for the first time in a bigger company where you have a bit more time to like really focus on the like manager aspect of it without having to also think about the execution of it. So I think like overall, managing's complicated. It's really hard. Every single team, every single company, every single circumstance is different. And I think it can be really tough, especially if like, there's a very big difference between like, you're the founder or you're part of the founding engineers and you grow with the company. So it's like, you get step by step the ability to build trust and you've grown with the company, you know it like the back of your hand. And that like leading from that position is a very different feeling than like, hey, I'm brand new, I'm your manager. I'm brand new to the company and you. Hi, I'm your manager. Different feeling than like, we've just had a lot of changes in the company. Right. Guess what? I'm now head of engineering. It's like, and so doing that, I think it required a lot of like learning on both sides of things, of every side of things. Of like, I'm learning the people I'm working with, the people who are now my reports. I'm learning like, okay, especially being the head of engineering, you end up like going into the exec conversations. You're going to the board meetings. You're like actually learning like, how does all of this work?
And decisions that are going on in the background. Yeah.
And so I think actually that's one of the best things about like, if you want to try management, if you want to try this very difficult and complicated role of leading people, you really get to understand, like I felt like my opportunity at Glitch helped me really understand how a tech company works in a way that wasn't accessible to me as an IC. And so, it was hard work. It was really rewarding work. Interesting to try out, like, what's it like to manage and, like, be hands-off, really, on the coding side. And though I will have to say, I did end up missing the coding.
You felt like you were doing more managing than, like,
absolutely. Like, if anything, this is true advice that people give to new managers of, like, new engineering managers. So, like, it's not your job to code anymore. Stop coding. Focus on people. And I do think it's a sign if you're like with me, I was just like, please tell me, like, please let me get back to a terminal again. Might mean that maybe it's not a fit, right? Like, and so I think for me, again, I wouldn't say no. Like, it's not like I'm like never gonna manage ever again, but like I think I knew at least at that time, I'm like, all right, my next role is gonna be coding again, building again,
Because you even before you're like, I want to like build, right? With your experiences, like you knew you wanted to do that, and then okay, cool. Well, awesome. So then now I think leading a team, right now your next role you wanted to code, and then and then now circling back to. I think then your next role is the browser company, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, I'm curious, like, what that was like. I think also it was, I guess, do you, like, know how old the company was when you had first joined?
Oh, boy. Great question. So they first contacted me when I was still at Glitch, when it was like 6 people. And so I think when I joined, I was like 15 or 16, or maybe 17, 18. I think under 20. I think I joined under 20. I think there were a few, you got to fact check me, but I think it was a few years old. Yeah. And I think there are over 100 people now, which is wild. It's wild to think about.
Yeah. That's wild. And so then what, like joining then, I think also it's like you specifically chose like they had reached out to you and kind of what was that like, having to express like, you wanted to.
Right. So I think, again, there's some things that I just kind of had on my career bucket list. And one was like, I wanted to try startups. I wanted to try quote unquote classic Silicon Valley startups. And when I say that, I mean like venture backed, like things that have the goal of, I guess, again, I don't say this in a negative way, but it's like more of, I want to grow up to look like what people think of when they think of a tech company, as opposed to, I think we'll get to it, like sort of the work I'm doing now, which is pretty indie and out there. Like I knew I wanted to at least try the like, okay, we're not going all the way indie and weird yet, but like something like, what's that, not a big company, is a startup and is sort of like a startup that is doing things the way Silicon Valley does. I wanted to just see what that feels like. And because my experience at Glitch had been in management exclusively, I knew I did not want to, I needed to also experience what's it like working in a startup in a non-leadership position. What's it like to be an IC? I really wanted to feel like, what are the problems that you're an engineer, you're getting, sometimes you have pager duty, you have these demands from leadership, and what does it mean? How does it feel on the ground, sort of being the ones to build the product? And so, yeah, I knew I wanted that experience next. I love browsers. And so when the browser company reached out saying hey, we're building a browser, we'd love you to join. We have space on they really had space anywhere to be an IC engineer. It felt like the right time, and I knew I wanted to give it a try. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. What was your time like there? I feel like the thing about the browser company is I was very I guess inspiring to me. I think being able to, it was just for me a new space that I didn't know that was being innovated at the, I don't know. It was a very, so I always felt incredibly inspired by it. And I think also, the people working there and stuff. And so, I'm curious, kind of what your day-to-day looked like there when you were working there and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the team is brilliant. There's so many cool people at the browser company. So it was again, still even though I'm not there, I still have so many friends from the browser company. So I think day to day, to be honest, it was pretty intense. I think it's really true for a lot of companies, especially now.
People talk startup vibe. Is this kind of what you describe that experience?
I would say that and I would say in contrast with Glitch, I felt I worked hard at Glitch. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
They're hard.
Yes.
Everyone was working hard at Glitch. I would say browser company, while people were of course there's so much innovation, creativity, I think people genuinely caring about each other. I do still feel it was way more of a grind. And again, not saying it as I'm not singling out the browser company about that. It's just, that's more classic tech startup, right? Of you're gonna work real hard. You're gonna work many hours. You've got really tight timelines. And so it was both really exciting to work on different problems, move so quickly, but also again, quite tiring. To be honest, I'm getting older. I'm at 37, I'm oh man, I was spend all day just coding in one position. Literally, my back hurts.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being, again, this is really not about the browser company, about me. I was starting to feel creatively stifled of oh man, I'm working on this one problem of browsers all day, every day. I'm working on shipping these features as fast as possible. Hey, it was time to check in again. Is this where my passions are? Is this what I'm excited about? So I think in some ways, being in that environment, it really makes you choose, is this the sacrifice you want to make? And for many people, including, people working there, it's yes, this is, I think so with startups, it can be so often a dichotomy of some people are so hyped to give it their all, like pour their life into this thing. And to them, a company like Browser Company is a great fit. Others, I think companies in Silicon Valley, great fit. For me, I was starting to realize, oh, actually, I'm interested in other things. I'm interested in, I think, even more, way more radical than what like Silicon Valley is interested in. Is like, what if I'm interested in thinking of like new ways to work, new ways to like interact with our life beyond capitalism, like very hippie things. And so I was like, oh, okay, sweet. Like, I think then, it really gave me actually a lot of clarity working at the Browser Company of like, oh, I think I want to be even more different, even more unusual than working at an innovative startup in Silicon Valley, or, they're in New York, but in the same vibe. So yeah, it was a honestly great learning experience. Love the people there. And yeah, helped really inform me on like my next steps actually.
Yeah. No, I think I also like, I don't know, I think they're very public with their building. So, or at the time, I just remember like, I think you had worked on some feature and that's how I found you.
That's sweet. Okay, great. Was it booths?
Yeah, definitely like your work is like always like, I think Ben kind of also like, I recognized it and it's, everyone was working really hard. I think what I'm trying to say is everyone was working really hard for sure. You could definitely tell.
We're out there. Yeah.
Okay. So I think you're hinting at it. It's like your work now. And I'm curious to hear kind of where you are about like, your decisions on starting to like, okay, leaving the Browser Company and, where you saw yourself next.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, like I think when you end up spending just so much time working on one problem, working toward one goal, I think it's just natural. You just start questioning of like, all right, let me make sure I'm opting into this. Like, is this right for me? Is this right for me? And actually, one thing that I'm so grateful for through Browser Company was I had an exec coach at the Browser Company, paid for by the Browser Company. I also had a mentor at the Browser Company. Both these women, it's Virginia Bauman, Inyoung Choi, they got me together. Like, they really like helped me like figure out like, and so like one thing like Virginia was encouraging me to do is she was like, look inside and like think about what are you drawn to? What are you like interested in? And I was like, I remember this conversation with her. It was like, this is so stupid. I like stickers. And she's like, why is that stupid? Like, she's like asking me, I'm like dismissing my own interests. And like, Virginia's like, what is stupid about this? Like, and she's like challenging myself to like, actually like, she's like, notice what you're interested in. And so that was like sort of the beginning is like, I started just thinking like, okay, what if I'm just open to anything? Let me see where I'm drawn to. And it was same, thing with Inyoung. Inyoung was telling me these messages of like, you're in your Olympic years of being a software engineer. You can, have the confidence that you can do this. And so I ended up thinking like, you know what? I actually, for some reason, I can't even name at the time, for some reason, I'm fascinated by paper. Again, I could talk more about it. It goes back to my roots of being 5 and like loving MS Paint and like being excited to print. But like, I was like, just something is calling me to this. And so originally I was like, all right, leaving Browser Company, I'm going to start a startup of my own. I was actually so certain of this that before I joined Browser Company, I talked with Josh. I was candid with him of like, Josh, if you want someone who's going to be at the company the entire time, that's not me. I think I'm going to leave and start my own company. He was like, go for it. We love that. Like, that's what we're looking for, people with an entrepreneurial spirit. I was so certain that like after Browser Company, I'm starting my own company. Virginia really got me together. And she was like, again, didn't discourage me from that, but she was just, from our conversations, she was like, what I'm hearing from you is like, it sounds like you're really craving space for creation. And it's just a different goal. Like, it's not that it's wrong to create a startup. It's just a different goal than wanting to create a startup, especially a venture-backed startup. That's very different than like wanting space for creativity. And I was like, actually really like, I was surprised by how scared I was by this like idea of choosing to totally not be tied to a company anymore, to actually just give myself space, not to build a company even, but to give myself space to literally just like see what speaks to me. And of course, it's an extreme privilege to be able to be in the financial position to have that. But that's what I ended up with my sabbatical. Like, I started it with the pure intention of just like, let me just wake up every day and see what I want to make. And so that ended up following, like, I was really, I keep telling people that like, paper has me in a chokehold. Like, it keeps like breaking my brain. And I think like, some of my software engineer friends are like asking me like, Victoria, aren't you bored with paper? Like, isn't it, you've been doing this for 2 years? And like, I think, if you allow me to go on a tangent for a bit, but not that unlike all the other, tangents I haven't been going on, but like an example of where paper has me in a chokehold, keeps like challenging all of my worldview is like, I've been a pen and paper journaler for a long time. My journaling friends were telling me, Victoria, you need to draw in your journal. Try drawing your memories. And I was like, no, I'm not good enough at drawing. I'm not good at drawing my memories. I'd rather take a photo and paste in a photo. Isn't a photo just like strictly superior than a bad drawing I would make? Why would I bother drawing in my journal? I finally tried it this year, and they're like, kids are saying, you're going to remember it better. You're going to remember it better. And so I finally tried it this year. Paper's done it again. My friends were totally right. It's like, I draw these like 2-minute bad sketches in my journal. And when I like revisit them, I remember the moment in my body in a way that I don't access when I look at a photo. Or it's like, it's differently accessed than when I look at a photo, when I have to take the time to take a photo to get out of a moment. And to me, as a technologist, that's interesting because, again, I think we have this like perception in tech that there's like this linear progression of like, oh, we used to have typewriters. Okay, we used to do things on paper. Oh, we have replaced that. That is obsolete. Now it's digital. After digital, oh, that's obsolete. Now it's AI. And I realized with paper, it just like kept breaking that worldview for me of like, oh, I don't think it's a linear progression. Oh, I don't think digital has even bested paper. Actually, I don't even think we need to think of these as like opposite forces. Why don't we think of like what makes this medium strong? What makes paper shine? Let's embrace that for certain problems. Where does digital shine? Let's embrace that for certain problems. And it actually, as an engineer, as a technologist, it was so freeing and eye-opening to be like, what if I didn't try to solve everything digitally? What if I tried my new approach to problem solving, which takes into account every option? Like, is this problem actually best solved by technology or technology in the form of code? Or is it solved better by paper?
That's so interesting. I feel like that's not something even we consider now because our default is always just either software.
Exactly. It's sort of like, and so to me, I was like, oh, again, in retrospect, it's clear to me why paper was like so attractive to me because it's like, wait a minute, like, for instance, in some ways I consider Pouch an Instagram competitor. Pouch is my paper magazine, by the way.
Yes.
It's a magazine for stationery lovers. And so like I thought about like, journalers were connecting a lot through, if it wasn't like an in-person meetup or a convention like a stationery fest, people connected through Instagram. And of course, again, I have an Instagram, problems with Instagram, but like, a lot of benefits of Instagram as well. But I noticed too that there were things that were not serving us, like parts of Instagram that weren't serving us, including on Instagram, you always feel behind. Also, you have to be on your phone. And especially if you're an analog journaler, you want to be in your journal. Like you want to look up inspiration, but phones are so addicting. Instagram's so addicting. Oh, I was just going to look this one thing up.
Tangents, and then now you're looking at something else.
Yeah. And so actually, I thought like the problem that Instagram was filling of like, it helps us stay connected as journalers. It helps us stay connected with the stationery community. I was like, rather than having a digital Instagram competitor, what if there's a paper one? And I think actually Pouch solves a lot of problems of like, there's only 22 journal layouts. You can feel caught up on that. Like, it's analog. And so for a journaler, if your goal is you want to be in your journal, the fact that you're already off your phone, if you're reading Pouch, is like, the fact that pouch is it's interesting, but not that interesting, really. Like, it's easy to put down. Your phone's hard to put down. So, like, those are the sort of intentions with which I, like, looked at a problem that this community is facing, and I felt like the solution is not digital here. The solution here is paper, is analog. And again, as an engineer, this excites me, like this ability to sort of solve problems without being tied to having to find a solution that looks like one thing, looks digital, but then could take a lot of, different shapes.
Yeah. No, and I feel like that's so true. And also there's a big, like, I think resurgence of, people not wanting to be like online anymore, and the affecting attention span. And like, that's been a huge, I think, call out, like, I feel like in the last several years with being very ingrained in like social media and everything. And yeah, I totally relate. I feel like I go on my phone for one thing and then all of a sudden
it's like, oh no,
30 minutes passed and it's what happened? What was I even looking for? Yeah. And you've mentioned this before, like online, that your creative work centers a harmony between software and paper. And so I'm really curious, like what does that mean? Like, I feel like I'm,
it's a good
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think like I'm trying to carve like a space where it's like, I think on one hand, especially within the journaling community, the art community, it's like we have a craving to be offline, to celebrate the analog form. At the same time, it's undeniable we get so much benefit from technology. So I encourage myself to, like, rather than thinking about versus, rather than thinking about this versus that, like, there's so much narrative in tech about domination of like, I want to, beat this, beat that. And I think, frankly, why a lot of the art community feels this sort of tension is because tech has been not serving the art community in the ways that we need. And so to me, it's like, okay, we don't have to wholesale reject all of technology as artists, as illustrators. Instead, we can, accept the parts that are benefiting us, whether it's something like a podcast, something like, the ability to text each other, the ability to like share our work digitally. And I want to actually add to that conversation of like, I want to build more tools that are in line with the values of journalers, of people who love analog. Again, center the needs of analog journalists. So actually, just to be specific about journaling, I think a lot of people, when they think of digital tools for journalers, they say digital journal. Like, okay, move your paper journal aside, and now you should just like journal digitally. And no. Like, that to me is like, no, if you're an analog journaler, I want to stay in my journal. But that doesn't mean there's no technology that's interesting to me. So for instance, what I'm working on right now is actually photo printing. Like, this is something that like print tools have not progressed much. Historically.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The printer just decides if it wants to print or not sometimes.
Yes. Let me, I can talk way too long about printers. But like, I describe my work sometimes as like, I'm interested in the negative space of the tech industry. Like, where has the tech industry not been? It's like, that's where I'm interested in. And like, so print, because it's personally interesting to me, and it's like a really uncharted territory.
Yeah. No, wait, you're right.
Right? Yeah. No, it's exciting. And so it's like, okay, actually, like, what a lot of analog journalers are so curious about is like, hey, I'm behind on my journal. I've got like 4 months of photos I want to print. Also, I don't want to go to CVS because they're going to make me print in 4x6. I want to print bespoke sizes perfect for my journal. You can use, now that's somewhere where technology can help. Like, on the tedious part of resizing my image to be the right print size, keep it at print resolution, and have the color quality good, because make that part fast, because where people want to spend the time, where they want to linger, is analog. So it's like, all right, let me just make this like digital part, this digital tool really fast so that you can like get the like digital thing that you're not that interested in over with quickly. Let's print the photos and like come back to our analog space we want to like stay in. And again, I think it's pretty interesting, because when you start thinking about it that way, it's like, so often we think of like, where do you store images? Oh, the cloud. Oh, S3. In this paradigm, you're storing it in your journal. The final storage is on your journal.
The concept's the same. It's
yeah, exactly. And so like how does the tech change when S3 doesn't matter? Like, it doesn't actually matter. The final destination is paper. And again, I tell my software engineer friends who question, like, why are you interested in paper? The problem of laying out photos for print is NP hard. It is a bin packing problem. Like, this is like unsolved. It's like actually extremely, there's so many interesting algorithms.
Saw a TikTok of like someone it's like they're trying to print out like multiple like sticky notes. So it's like printing on a sticky note. Like you can't just put in a sticky note through a regular printer. And there's this like, oh, like here's the tutorial of like how to print out like on 6 different sticky notes. Like here's, and yeah, it's a process. It hasn't really been, it's tedious.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so, I love it. It's so much fun to be like sort of rethinking. I'm like, how's UX patterns. There's so many UX patterns that have not been questioned that it's really exciting to be building this space, building with in the community too. It's like, actually, so again, another random fun anecdote with how sweet and welcoming the analog community is. So I had built a tool in like 2 weeks. I was in like, I just like hyper fixated on it really, really quick. I totally forgot to test it on any browser but Chrome. I was like, I just forgot. And like someone DM me being like, oh, hey, I tried this in Safari. I think I might be doing something wrong. Because of course they blame themselves when it's like totally my fault. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I actually forgot to test this in Safari. Let me go make that work real quick. She apologized to me. She was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think of using it in Chrome. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
But it's like, to give you the sense, anyone who's worked in tech where you're used to people being like, very not empathetic about the fact that you forgot to. So it's been such a joy to like work in
a different space.
Yeah, totally different space, totally different audience. I'm working not for a tech audience. Like actually, my audience is largely, not very online. And so that's exciting too. It's like a very different assumptions that you go in with when you're building.
Yeah. Because tech, and I feel like I talk about this a lot. Like tech is a very like a bubble.
A bubble for sure. Yeah.
Like if stuff is so normalized, like sometimes it's like you're talking to like other people who have no idea what you do or anything.
100%.
Unrelated to whatever you do. And they're just like, what do you say? Because it's just so normalized. But yeah, no, and also this also is just like very warm to my heart. I used to like bullet journal and like everything. It was very, it definitely, it's very like, I think inspiring to people who I've even, used to do it in the past, journal in the past. Journaling's also like, feel like been very like big and, coming back. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Just like non-digital stuff, I think on the rise in general. Yeah. Absolutely loved hearing about it. And yeah, really quick, I think before we ended off, like, Pouch, a little bit more about it and also where people can like find your work.
Oh my gosh, yes, of course. So yes, Pouch is my indie magazine that I started. It is a team of one. Part of why I made Pouch was because my training is mostly in software engineering. So in some ways, illustrating Pouch was like my personal boot camp of like learning design and illustration, like through the vehicle of making this like highly visual magazine. So anyway, it's a yearly print magazine that covers, the joy of stationery. So if you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, what is this phenomenon? Consider picking up a copy of Pouch. You can find Pouch on shop.pouchmagazine.com. If you're not ready to commit like the magazine yet, fine. You can also check out like my Pouch Studio Instagram at pouch.studio. And you can also find me on Substack. My Substack handle is vrklovespaper.substack.
Love. So, yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Victoria. I feel like this was such a great conversation on, I think, your like career as a whole and everything that you've kind of been through. And I think this is like really informative to our audience. I think who's, learning we have a lot of our audience who's learning to code for the first time. And so definitely
you can do it.
Yes. Hearing you, I think, talk about, your entire career journey, I think it's like really inspiring. And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, this is so much fun.
Talking with me today.
Absolutely. This is so much fun.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Yay.